You have been struggling with your cravings. If you've listened to my podcast episodes on cravings, emotional eating, relationship with food, and you're wondering, all right, Brianna, how do you conquer your cravings? How do you deal with cravings that come up, especially postpartum? How you deal with cravings throughout your day? How did you deal with it when you were really struggling with your weight and your relationship with food, your body, and yourself? Well, today I am revealing that to you. Today I'm going to be talking about the three different steps or thoughts or the processes that I use, and this one tool I really use with clients to really help, that really helped me conquer my cravings, currently help me conquer my cravings, and will continue to help me conquer my cravings. And I'm revealing how I can also support you in doing that through my 90-minute Food Freedom Intensive, which from now until Friday the 20th has a special offer with 3 special bonuses on it that would really help support you in not only me helping understand what you're craving, but you and how to apply even the tool that I use to conquer my cravings together. All right. So make sure you listen to this podcast episode. And if you want to learn more about that special offer that I have, that bonus, you really want to make sure you book a coaching clarity call. Again, that's a no pressure clarity call where we can really unpack what are your goals, what are you kind of feeling like you're most struggling with, and how this 90-minute session and the bonuses can really support you in conquering your cravings for good. All right, so just put a spot on the calendar now so you can qualify for that bonus, and we can talk more on the call. All right, go to madewell345.com/clarity and grab a spot on my calendar today. All right, enjoy the episode. You're listening to the More Than Your Weight podcast, and I'm your host, Brianna Wilkerson. You know, for over half my life, I had to really pay attention to my relationship with food, my body, and myself. As a young girl, I started to find my worth in my weight and my work, and started to define my beauty and my body and my value through how I looked and how other people saw me. That led to disordered ways of eating, of exercising, and really just a poor relationship with my body and myself. And then when I started to finally see that my worth was not in my weight, it was not in how I looked, and it was not in what people thought of me, that's when I found breakthrough and freedom. And ever since, it's been my mission to help other women do the same. I am on a mission to see other women find peace with food, feel confident in their bodies again, and develop a healthy lifestyle that's more than about what they weigh. Now, weight loss is not necessarily a bad thing, but I do think when we are approaching it from a place of value or a place of trying to find our worth in it, that's when it can really trip us up. So I want you to find peace with food, to find your version of food freedom, your version of body confidence and love, and a healthy lifestyle that is about so much more than what the scale says. So this podcast is going to help you do that. You're going to find solo episodes, guest interviews, all designed to really speak from the heart, give you some new ways of thinking and acting so that you can start to also believe and walk in the truth that you are more than your weight. And from time to time, I'll throw in an essential oils episode because I'm also a lover of essential oils. So I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so honored to be a part of this journey with you. So please, before you get into the interview or the podcast or leave, I want to make sure you do a couple things. Make sure you join my free Facebook group, the More Than Your Weight Facebook community. This is a women's community designed to support you in really unpacking these episodes. I also host free trainings, free challenges to really kind of support you more in this journey. Also, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, rate and review, but also subscribe to my weekly newsletter so you'll never miss a podcast episode. You can find all the links for that in the show notes. So make sure after you listen that you go do those things. Okay? So excited for this episode and so excited to journey with you. All right, enjoy. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the More Than Your Weight podcast. And today I am just going to talk about my personal story around conquering cravings and how I conquered my cravings for good. So for the last, 2 or 3 podcast episodes, we've talked about food and cravings and how food could be a powerful source to really give our body what it needs, as we heard last week with Christina, but also the 2 podcasts before, how food can really, just support our bodies, but also for many of us, how food has become something that we fear. It's become something that is more of a foe. It's become something that we crave, and yet we feel bad for craving. And so let's just normalize it and talk about how awesome food is, but how hard it is to really have a relationship with food. And one of those ways that it's hard is because of the cravings we have. If you participated in my challenge last week, I hope you enjoyed it. And it was a very value-filled, very impactful challenge that if you're not in my Facebook group, the More Than Your Weight Women's Community, you can still go watch some of the videos. So make sure you join the group. But, I mentioned a lot of things throughout the challenge, the different types of cravings and how we know what we're craving and when, and the different sources of cravings internally and externally, and different ways to conquer it through food, mindset, and habits. And I just really wanted to share with you my story in conquering cravings and the things that I'm still doing to conquer cravings. Because guess what? It's like conquering your cravings for good doesn't mean you're never going to have a craving again. That's just weird to ever think. That's not going to happen. That's not realistic. But conquering your cravings for good means you are more aware of what you're craving and when and why. And you're then making a conscious decision to either, one, have what you're craving, or two, decide that having what you're craving is not going to serve you in that moment or in the long run, so you decide to not give into it, right? Conquering your cravings for good, what that means, that really means that you are the boss. Like you are in charge of what you eat, and you're no longer sitting there feeling like a victim to your cravings or a victim to your food. I just feel like that is something I really want to share with you, like my story around that. And if you followed me for a long time, you know a little bit more about my story. But, I used to see food as all kind of different ways. We talk about food as a friend, foe, or fuel. And in some moments, some days, I see it as all three, or one or the other, or two of the other. But when I was really struggling in the overeating, emotional eating state, that's when I would say cravings were very strong for me. I craved sugar, I craved salt, I craved fat, I craved processed foods. And the sources for me was, one, I wasn't nourishing my life, right? We talked about the primary food as one of the core sources of cravings, not really paying attention to the other areas of your life. I was highly stressed and didn't have a good relationship with my body or myself, therefore not a good relationship with food or my weight. And I just felt like I had denied myself certain foods for so long that when I was stressed out or when I was feeling for it, I would have it. And it led to shame. It led to guilt when I was constantly feeling like I was just giving in and giving in and giving in and not really knowing what was happening at the time, right? Hindsight 2020. Looking back, I'm like, oh, that's what was happening. I struggled with this for a long time. I struggled with, running to sugar, running to salt, running to fat, running to these different processed foods to make me feel good. And as we talked about last week, there are many other sources, right? Hormonal. There are lack of nutrients, lack of water, what you eat does so therefore when I kept eating those things, I kept craving those things. Your body's like, oh, this is familiar. Let's keep doing this. So there's many reasons why other than the ones that I mentioned. But I just felt like I was trapped, right? And maybe many of you are feeling that way and have felt that way before. You feel like you're trapped. No matter what you do, your cravings are controlling you. No matter what you do, food is your enemy. No matter what you do, it's your friend. No matter what you do, you just feel like I can try a diet, I can do these tips, but nothing is going to work. And I'm here to say that my journey was not like one thing happened and everything changed. It was small steps. It was doing the mindset work. It was shifting my habits over a long period of time. And I say that because I think so many of us are still searching for a quick solution. We're still searching for the next tip, the next diet, the next program, the next podcast to really help us break through. And I believe all of that's going to build upon each other, right? But the thing that really helped me break through was asking myself I didn't realize at the time I was doing this, right? So when I reflect, I was asking myself or doing this practice that included 3 things. And I like to call this RCA. This is something I love to lead clients through. This is something that I'm mentioning a lot in my first book that I'm writing now. And RCA stands for Reflect, Celebrate, and Adjust. And so I went through a process of whether it was weekly or daily or monthly through different programs that I was doing, through different coaches I had, through different, just situations and reflections, I went through this process. And the first was I reflected, like, what, and I think reflection is a big category, but reflecting particularly on my habits, particularly on my food choices, how I felt before and after I ate a certain food, emotionally and mentally and physically, how I felt, just kind of like what, then reflecting and seeing the patterns, seeing that when I was stressed, I ate this. When I did this, this happened. Or when I didn't have enough water, this craving came, right? So that process of reflection was really instrumental to really just understanding with a graceful posture, understanding with a no judgment posture. And that's why I have this amazing food journal and tracker, which I'll talk about at the end, that has set that out for you. So it's pretty easy for you to do this yourself, but also with support, hopefully from me. So reflection, just reflecting on my food and healthy habit patterns, but also what went well, what didn't go so well, what, just all of these patterns, and giving myself credit where credit was due. So that's where the celebration part comes in. So when I reflected and realized, okay, well, you were feeling stressed that day, but instead of running to food or whatever, you decided to go for a 5-minute walk, or you decided to do some breathing exercises, or you just out of the blue, you started craving cookies as you passed a bakery, and instead of turning around and go in, you're like, no, I'm about to go get dinner. It's fine. Or maybe you actually did go get those cookies, but what'd you learn from it? So you still need to celebrate that. So that process of like looking back and reflecting, but then celebrating myself where credit was due has been super instrumental to my success in conquering my cravings, in breaking free from emotional eating, in finding a healthy relationship with food, in managing my weight, in all of these things that we talk about here on this podcast, even to realizing that I'm more than my weight, right? So the reflection and celebration process is crucial before we get to the adjustment process. And I think in the past, before I really did the first 2 steps, I was always trying to adjust. I say, okay, well, you keep giving into these cravings, so find the next plan, or do the next trick, do the next tip, okay? And that didn't work because I wasn't looking at the overall honest picture, and I wasn't also celebrating myself. I was just putting myself in like a hole and constantly feeling that I sucked, when in reality I didn't. Okay. So the adjustment process is definitely a process where you're looking back. You say, okay, this went well. This didn't go well. I'm going to celebrate myself here, but what can I do differently? After having all of this data in front of me, after processing it with myself or with others, what can I do differently tomorrow, next week, next month? And be realistic about that adjustment process, right? So if I realize, okay, Brianna, you weren't drinking enough water, well, I'm not going to say I'm going to drink tons more. I'm saying just drink a cup more. Right after breakfast, drink a cup of water or whatever, And so that process of reflection, celebration, and adjustment for me really helped me to find freedom in my cravings and in my relationship with food. And it's something that I'm still having to do now, not just with my relationship with food or my body, but in other areas of my life. But particularly as I approach the 1 year postpartum, where I wish my body was acceleratedly and just back to where it was before. But you know what I did this past weekend? I'm just letting you know. I went and cleared all my old clothes out. I went and I cut my hair recently. I decided to stop waiting for my body to be a certain way for me to love it. And I talk about this all the time, but I think with all of us, it takes those small steps. I decided to stop waiting until I wasn't eating any more grains or sugar or whatever, to start celebrating that all of the amazing food choices I've made postpartum, right? We are all waiting. We're waiting to feel worthy. We're waiting to go buy new clothes that we feel good and comfortable in, because they'll be in a smaller size. We're waiting versus embracing who we are now, but also taking action to change our reality. And so I say this to tell you that, yes, I apply the RCA method. I applied it in the past and I'm applying it now. And it's not, I'm still on a journey where I am conquering my cravings, but I have conquered them for good, meaning that I know the process to reflect, celebrate, and act. I know the process of identifying what I'm craving and when, and making the conscious decision to act upon it or not. And that is what I want to help you do. As someone who has been there, as someone who has helped countless hundreds of women in their relationship with food and their health goals, I'm saying I would love to help you. I mentioned this special offer for all the challenge participants. I only have a few spots, and the offer ends this Friday, meaning you have to at least book a call to talk about it by this Friday. And, I've talked about my Food Freedom 90-minute session, and every single time, every single woman who does this session with me, I leave saying I wanted to keep going because it was such a transformative breakthrough type session. They leave so encouraged, so inspired, and realizing things they didn't realize about their relationship with food, their body, and themselves and their habits. But I decided, I wanted to add an extra bit of support to this 90-minute session as we talk about cravings. Because sometimes, again, cravings are something we realize, but sometimes they could be a bit mysterious. And so if you book a coaching clarity call, this is a free complimentary call to talk about whether this is I think it's a great fit for you, but what the details on this 90-minute program, where you're at and how this 90 minutes intensive can really support you, you'll qualify for this bonus if you decide to go forward with it. And the bonus is you're going to get my More Than Your Weight habits tracker and food journal. And then you're going to get 1 week of support, meaning after our call, you're going to use that journal for 1 week. And then we're going to have a 30-minute follow-up session where we're going to do RCA, reflect, celebrate, and act, or adjust, to after looking at that data from that 1 week. And so the More Than Your Weight Foods Journal Habits Tracker is a key tool that I use. I've actually used this in some different shapes or form for my very first client over 5 years ago, where there's a space to enter all your meals and reflect on them, how you felt before, after, and during, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And then there's also a space to track certain healthy habits that contribute to your nutrition and vice versa, such as, water or sleep or stress or movement, or even mindset stuff like affirmations. This Food Journal Habits Tracker is a glimpse of the bigger one that I use for clients that comes with videos and more resources. But so you'll just get a glimpse of the work that I do with my 6 month coaching clients when you even do this 90-minute session. Because so you're going to get that food journal and habits tracker, which, trust me, is going to help you do the RCA method, which is, trust me, then with the 1 week of support as you're doing it and as I'm looking on it for you. And then as we debrief it and do the RCA, reflect, celebrate, and adjust, 30-minute session, you are going to, trust me, you're going to get some of the tools you need to conquer for cravings for good. Okay? So if you have been listening and you feel like or you feel like you struggle with a bad relationship with food, your body and yourself, emotional eating, cravings, just not being able to stick to the healthy habits that you want, not quite sure how to balance your meals, because the food journal habits tracker includes 3 things: a food journal habits tracker and actually a food chart with a lot of whole food choices that you could use for protein, fat, and carbs to have that balanced meal. And if you feel like you're just ready to enter the summer, just finding freedom from the very beginning, because summer's time, I want you to enjoy it. I want you to enjoy the summer foods as you travel, as you visit family, but I want you to do them from a place of empowerment. And you're not going to be able to do that if you're not sure how to conquer your cravings and have a healthy relationship with food, your body, and yourself. So what I want you to do, you have 4 days to do this, is to book a coaching clarity call. In my calendar, find a spot for the next week or two. If you can't find a time that works for you, let me know. Email me, madewellky@gmail.com, or whatever. Just find a time. It's just going to be over the phone where we're just going to be able to talk. And then if you decide I want to go forward after we talk, then you will qualify for those 3 bonuses: the food journal habits tracker, the 1 week of support, and then the follow-up 30-minute session. Okay? Those are bonuses for this 90-minute coaching intensive, which you're still going to get tons out of. But these bonuses I specifically have added in to really support women as they are ready. Hopefully you're ready to conquer your cravings and, find peace with food as we enter the summer. So go to madewell345.com/clarity, madewell345.com/clarity, or go to the show notes and book a call today so I can help you, as I've gone through this and I've helped countless clients go through this, reflect, celebrate, and adjust so that you too can conquer your cravings for good. All right? Again, just book the call. It's a no pressure call where we can just help you get clear on how this is a great fit or not. And we can together learn what it truly means to conquer our cravings for good as we enter the summer. All right, I'll see you in the next episode, and hopefully I'll talk to you soon. Friends, I hope you enjoyed this episode with me just sharing a little bit how I use the RCA method to really help me conquer my cravings and how I can help you do that, especially with this 90-minute coaching session that I'm offering and the bonus around it, right? The food journal and habits tracker, the 1 week of accountability as you use that tracker, and then the 30-minute follow-up session. So make sure before you go, you book that clarity call. Put a spot on my calendar, because if you put a spot on my calendar this week, even if the call is later on in the next couple weeks, you'll qualify for that bonus, okay? So go to madewell345.com/clarity, and I can't wait to talk with you. That's it. That's another episode of the More Than Your Weight podcast. I hope that you're leaving encouraged and inspired to continue to walk in your More Than Your Weight journey. But before you leave, I want you to know you're not alone. And I want you to really walk in that by joining my free group, the More Than Your Weight Women's Community. This is a space where you can unpack the podcast episodes, get support throughout your week. And also make sure you subscribe to my newsletter by signing up for weekly updates when podcasts come out, as well as all the other things that I'm offering in my business. And if you're not about Facebook, or even maybe you're not about email, make sure you follow me on Instagram at madewell345 to show you the behind the scenes of my life, my business, and also to support you there. Okay, I just had a blast in this episode, and I hope that these episodes have really been just encouraging you and inspiring you to know that you are more than your weight. Okay, that's it, and I'll see you on the next one.